Sign it already so I can finally be free, my husband said, sliding the divorce papers across our dining table while his pregnant mistress stood beside him, smiling like she had already won. I looked at both of them, felt nothing but cold calm inside me, and picked up the pen without hesitation. My name is Naomi Hart, and that night, 3 minutes after signing away 15 years of marriage, I took my daughter Ruby and boarded a flight to London. Though none of them knew that yet, for 15 years I had given up my career to become Derek Cole's devoted wife. Enduring his cruelty and his mother Marjorie's constant insults about being a useless woman who could only cook and clean. Every single day was an exercise in quiet patience, yelled at over cold dinners or wrinkled shirts, while I told myself I only needed to stay strong for our daughter. Derek grew colder every year, disappearing on late nights and weekend golf trips. Until 6 months ago, I found a message from a woman named Paige on his phone, confirming both an affair and a pregnancy. When I confronted him, he simply smirked and said he was marrying Paige instead, calling me dull and boring, and Marjorie celebrated the news, thrilled at the chance of finally getting a grandson instead of a useless granddaughter like Ruby. As our taxi drove through the rain toward the airport, my phone rang with a call from my father-in-law Walter, begging me to come back and beg for forgiveness so Derek would keep his reputation intact, insisting a woman with no real skills could never raise a child alone. I told him calmly that my decision was already made, then hung up and held Ruby close, promising her a new and happy life far away from a home filled with cruelty and cold judgment from people who never once valued me. At the airport, we ran into Derek's sister Chelsea, dressed in designer clothes on her way to Hawaii, who mocked me loudly in front of strangers, insisting I would be broke within a month and come crawling back begging Derek for money. I said nothing because, unlike what they believed, I was never just a helpless housewife, and tucked safely in my coat pocket was a secret they had no idea existed. One that would soon turn their entire triumphant world completely upside down after landing in London. Exhausted and soaked from the rain, every single credit card I owned was declined at the hotel front desk. And I later discovered Derek and Marjorie had frozen every joint account and canceled every card the moment my plane took off, stranded on a freezing street with Ruby shivering and hungry beside me. Panic finally began creeping into my chest, until a black luxury car pulled up and a familiar face stepped out holding an umbrella, offering to take us somewhere warm and safe immediately. The man was Richard Hale, director of a major investment fund and a longtime business associate connected to my secret past. What Derek, Marjorie, and Paige never knew was that before marriage I had worked as a brilliant financial analyst. And years ago, my former boss, Nathaniel Hale, had quietly kept me employed as a hidden analyst, letting me work from home under an assumed identity while earning far more than Derek ever made at his own company. Richard explained that Nathaniel had personally arranged our hotel and instructed him to protect us the moment I finally left. And he revealed something else entirely shocking: that Derek Company had been secretly investigated for embezzlement tied to suspicious offshore transactions for months already. Even more disturbing, Richard had quietly investigated Paige and discovered her pregnancy likely belonged to another man entirely, a wealthy older patron using her to manipulate Derek into stealing company funds for their benefit, settled safely into a private London townhouse. I opened my laptop that same night and began unraveling the tangled financial trail myself, tracing every shell company Derek had used until it all led directly to a single hidden account controlled by Paige's real patron, a career con artist named Victor Lane. The numbers that once looked like meaningless chaos on the page became crystal clear under my hands. And within days, my findings reached Derek Company auditors directly, exposing millions in stolen funds routed through offshore accounts. The moment his coworkers realized a mysterious top analyst named Naomi Hart had cracked the entire scheme in complete secrecy, panic exploded through the entire firm, and no one could believe the housewife they had dismissed for years was actually the sharpest mind in the room. Back home, at a routine ultrasound appointment, doctors revealed Paige was actually 5 months pregnant, far earlier than her supposed relationship with Derek, exposing her lie in front of Marjorie and Chelsea just as police arrived to arrest Derek for felony embezzlement. Paige fled straight to Victor's apartment begging for help, only to be slapped, humiliated, and abandoned completely once he learned his own offshore accounts had already been frozen and seized by international investigators working directly for my former mentor. Marjorie and Walter soon lost their home entirely, their savings wiped out after co-signing Derek fraudulent investment loans, while Chelsea credit cards were declined mid-vacation, leaving the once arrogant family scrambling through unpaid bills and mounting shame neither of them had ever imagined possible. Meanwhile, Derek Company itself was quietly acquired through a hostile takeover by the very fund Nathaniel controlled. And days later, I learned I had personally been named the new president overseeing the company. Derek once proudly called his own empire at the final creditors' meeting. Derek sat handcuffed and broken beside his defeated family, all of them stunned into silence the moment I walked in wearing a tailored navy suit instead of the tired apron they remembered. Now officially the sole creditor holding their entire $10 million debt. Marjorie begged desperately for mercy, Chelsea sobbed pathetic apologies, and Derek collapsed to his knees pleading for forgiveness. Yet I simply reminded them calmly that I never destroyed their lives. Their own greed and cruelty had already done that long before. Ever-returned police finally led Derek away in handcuffs while his parents were carried out in tears. And as those heavy doors closed behind them, I felt 15 years of suffocating pain finally lift completely from my chest for the very first time in longer than I could remember. That evening, my phone rang with Ruby's cheerful little voice asking when I was coming home. And hearing her laughter reminded me instantly that despite everything lost, I had already won the only thing that ever truly mattered to me. Weeks later, walking hand in hand with Ruby through the golden streets of London, I finally understood that the woman they once called useless had been powerful all along, simply waiting patiently for the courage to walk through an open door. If you have ever felt small in your own home, remember that your worth was never theirs to define. And you always deserve so much more than quiet suffering. If this story moved you, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you love powerful stories about betrayal, justice, and satisfying revenge, make sure you subscribe to the Revenge Tales so you never miss what happens next.